You spent 40 minutes writing it. You read it back 6 times. You worried about the formality. You worried about the tone. You worried about your English. You finally pressed send, and then nothing. No reply. Not a yes, not a no. Not even an automated bounce. Just silence. You check your sent folder a day later, then a week later. Still nothing. So you tell yourself the person is busy. You tell yourself maybe next week. And meanwhile, somewhere in their inbox, your beautifully crafted message sits there, unread, and quietly disappears.
This is the silent killer of professional English. Cold emails that go out perfect and come back as nothing. And almost every video on the internet teaches you the wrong thing about why. They teach you politeness. They teach you formality. They teach you the long, ceremonial way to address a stranger in English. But none of that is the problem. The problem is that you are writing a letter when the situation calls for an interruption.
A cold email is not a letter. A letter is something the reader chose to open. They sat down, they made tea, they decided to read your words. A cold email is the opposite of that. You are showing up uninvited in a stranger's inbox between 2 messages they actually wanted. You have maybe 2 seconds before they decide whether you exist or not. Therefore, the rules of letters do not apply here. The polite, layered, hedged opening that works in a thank you note is the exact thing that gets your cold email archived without being read.
And here is the deeper reframe. Most learners think a cold email is one thing, one block of writing, one unit they either get right or get wrong. That is the trap. A cold email is not one thing. It is 5 tiny things, sitting next to each other, each doing a separate job. The subject earns the open. The hook earns the first 3 seconds. The reason earns the right to be in the inbox at all. The offer earns the reply. And the ask earns the next step.
Once you see the 5 parts, 2 things become true. First, you stop trying to make every sentence carry everything. Each sentence has one job and only one. Second, when an email does not get a reply, you can actually diagnose why. It is almost never the whole email that failed, it is one of the 5 parts. And once you know which one, you can fix it on the next attempt instead of rewriting the whole thing from scratch and getting silence again. So today, I am going to walk you through the 5 parts in order with the exact phrase that anchors each one. By the end of this video, you will be able to sit down, write a cold email in English in under 5 minutes, and know that every line is doing real work. Let's go. Part 1. The subject.
The subject line is the most important sentence in your entire email, and almost nobody treats it that way. Learners spend 30 minutes on the body and 10 seconds on the subject. They write something like, quick question, or following up, or introduction. And those subjects are dead on arrival because they tell the reader nothing about what is inside and nothing about why it matters to them.
A working cold email subject does 2 things at the same time. It hints at what the email is about, and it makes the topic about the reader, not about you. The phrase pattern that lives at the center of this is quick question on Q3 pricing, or quick question on the Berlin launch. The word quick signals it is short. The word question signals it is specific, and the noun at the end signals you actually know what they are working on. 3 or 4 words, that is the entire subject. Anything longer than 7 words is too long for a phone preview anyway.
But the real test of a subject line is not how clever it sounds. It is whether the reader could imagine receiving it from a colleague they already know. If the subject sounds like it came from a salesperson, you are dead. If it sounds like it came from a coworker, you are alive. Therefore, the rule is write the subject last. Write the whole email first, find the most specific noun in your message, and put it in the subject line. The specificity is the signal. Part 2. The hook.
This is the part of a cold email that decides whether you exist. The first sentence the reader sees. The first 8 words that arrive after they tap open. And this is also the part that almost every learner gets exactly backwards. The default opening that everyone reaches for is, I hope this email finds you well. Or, my name is Alex and I am writing to. Both of those sentences are about you. They are warm-up sentences. They are throat clearing. And the reader can feel them coming from a mile away because every cold email they have ever received started that exact way.
The fix is brutal and simple. Cut the warm-up. Make your first sentence about them. The phrase that opens this cleanly is, I just saw your post on supply chain pricing. Or, I just saw your team is hiring for the Lisbon office.
Or, I noticed your company switched providers last quarter. The hook is one short observation about the reader, drawn from something specific you actually know about them. It tells the reader two things instantly. 1. You did your homework. 2. This email is not a mass blast.
And the hook is the part of the cold email that is worth 50% of your effort, even though it is only one sentence. Because every other part of your email can be perfect, but if the hook fails, no one reads any of it. Therefore, before you write anything else, write down what specifically you know about this person. Their last post, their recent hire, their product launch, their podcast appearance. Pick one detail, lead with it. The whole opening is one sentence, nothing more. Part 3. The reason. You have earned 3 more seconds with the hook. Now you have to earn the right to keep writing. Because the reader is still asking the silent question, why are you in my inbox? And if you do not answer that question fast and cleanly, they archive you. The reason sentence is where you say what your relationship to this topic is and why it makes sense for you specifically to be writing them. The phrase that anchors this is, I am reaching out because. 3 words, then one sentence that explains your angle. For example, I am reaching out because we run logistics for 2 companies that switched to your new platform this year, and I think there is a pattern worth flagging. Or, I am reaching out because I built the kind of dashboard your engineering post described, and I have data on what worked and what did not. Notice what the reason sentence does. It connects them to the topic, to you, 3 points, 1 line. It is not a sales pitch. It is not a long story about your background. It is a single sentence of context that earns you the next paragraph. The mistake learners make here is treating the reason like a resume. They list everything they have ever done. But the reader does not want your resume. They want one sentence of relevance. Anything more is noise. Let me pause here for a second, because if this breakdown is starting to make sense, I want to ask you something honest. The voice you are hearing is AI. The visuals you are watching are AI. But every line of this script is researched, written, and reviewed by a real human. By me, sitting at a desk, reading actual cold emails, watching what worked in actual replies, and trying to compress the lessons into something tight enough to be useful in 15 minutes of your day. That takes real time. The way this channel keeps existing is the like button and the subscribe button. If you have been getting value from these videos, 2 clicks is all I am asking for. Hit like, hit subscribe. It is the entire engine that keeps me able to make the next one. Thank you. Okay, back to it. Part 4. The offer. This is the part where most cold emails quietly collapse because most learners do not know what they are actually offering. They write a long paragraph about who they are, they write a long paragraph about what their company does, they write 3 more paragraphs about features and value and partnership, and by the time the reader reaches the end of all that, they have lost the thread and closed the tab. The offer is the answer to one specific question, and the question is, what is in this for the reader? Not what is in this for you, not what is in this for your company. What does the reader specifically get if they reply? And the answer has to be one concrete thing they can picture, not a vague concept they have to imagine. The phrase that opens this cleanly is, would it be useful if I sent over our 3-page brief on how those 2 companies handled the migration? Or would it be useful if I shared the dashboard structure on a quick screen share? The 2 magic words are sent over. They tell the reader exactly what is coming. A brief, a document, a short call, a specific resource. Not a meeting to discuss possibilities, not an exploratory conversation, something they can hold in their hand, mentally, in the next 10 seconds. The reason this matters is that the reader is computing risk in real time. Every cold email asks them to spend something, their time, their attention, their reply. And the smaller and clearer your offer, the lower their risk to say yes. A brief is low risk. A 15-minute call is low risk. A partnership conversation is high risk. Therefore, always make your offer something the reader could agree to without checking their calendar. Part 5. The ask. You have arrived at the last sentence of the email, and the only job of this sentence is to make saying yes easier than saying no. Most learners get this part wrong by being too polite. They write, Please let me know if you would be interested in potentially discussing this at some point in the future when you have a moment. Read that sentence again. Count how many escape hatches it gives the reader. Interested, potentially, discussing, at some point in the future when you have a moment. Every one of those words is an exit. By the end of that sentence, the reader has 6 different ways to say no without ever saying anything.
The fix is to give the reader exactly one small decision to make. The phrase that anchors this is, open to a quick 15 minutes next week? Or open to a quick look at the brief? The word open is the magic word. It is light, conversational, no pressure. 15 minutes is the magic time box. Long enough to be useful, short enough to feel free. Next week is the magic frame. Specific enough to commit to, soft enough to negotiate. And notice what this sentence does not do. It does not ask permission. It does not apologize for taking their time. It does not say thank you in advance. It does not promise to follow up. It is just the smallest possible door opened gently. The reader either walks through or they do not, but you have made the choice as easy as you possibly can.
Let me show you all 5 parts in one email so you can see how short the whole thing should be. The subject is, quick question on Q3 pricing. The hook is, I just saw your post on the new supplier framework. The reason is, I am reaching out because we ran a similar shift 2 quarters ago and the bills came in differently than the modeling predicted. The offer is, would it be useful if I sent over the 1-page summary of what we changed? The ask is, open to a quick 15 minutes next week? That is the whole email. 5 sentences, maybe 70 words. And every sentence is doing exactly one job that the other sentences are not.
Compare that to the cold email you have been writing, the one that is 3 paragraphs of background, 2 paragraphs of credentials, 1 paragraph of vague offer, and a sign-off that takes another 4 lines. That email is not too long because of bad writing. It is too long because no one ever showed you that the 5 jobs of a cold email could each be done in 1 sentence.
5 parts. Subject earns the open. Hook earns the first 3 seconds. Reason earns the right to be there. Offer earns the reply. Ask earns the next step. And the 5 phrases that anchor them? Quick question on whatever they actually care about. I just saw your such and such. I am reaching out because, would it be useful if I sent over, open to a quick 15 minutes next week? 5 sentences, 1 job each. That is the cold email that actually gets a reply.
Here's what to do next. Pick 1 cold email you owe somebody this week. Write it in 5 sentences. Use the 5 phrases. Send it. See what comes back. Because here's the thing the framework cannot teach you on its own. Once you stop writing cold emails like letters, your bigger problem becomes what to do when somebody actually replies. The follow-up conversation is a completely different muscle. The phone call, the negotiation, the handling of the polite no. And there is a lot more on this channel about all of that, in the kind of real-work English that nobody teaches in textbooks. Tell me in the comments, which of the 5 parts has been killing your cold emails? Subject, hook, reason, offer, or ask? Be honest. I read every comment, and the most common answer is probably going to shape the next thing I make on this channel. Thank you for watching all the way through. Now go write that email you have been putting off.